Yo, what is going on, Niner faithful? We have finally reached the end of open practices. Unfortunately, my man Ted, who joins me today. How are you doing? Open practices are in the book. What's up, Ted?
Not too much, Raj. Yeah, it's bittersweet. Actually, just a little bitter. I mean, all our QBs were not very good today. Open practices are over. Man, I saw you every day of practice except for Saturday when you had work. So 8 of the 9. It was a lot of fun. Met so many great people. Even today, Breezy and Bashar and Rich Keltz popped in for a quick cameo. It was a lot of fun. So, learned a lot and had a lot of fun. And it's just funny. Like people are like trying to argue with me about what I saw or like defame me because I like Trey Lance. Like I can't tell what the hell's going on after watching football for nearly coming up on 45 plus years. Uh, I don't know. It's just amazing what's going on out there. The things people say, they look at a stat and they think that they can tell us what happened. And it's like, no, dude, I'll tell you if you want to know, if you want to ask, I'll tell you what happened. But, anyone who thinks Sam Darnold's ahead of Trey Lance is out their mind, absolutely out of their mind. And, honestly, Lance is still ahead of Purdy even after today. I gave Purdy the day, but by a slim margin today.
Yeah, I think
So
that's the biggest takeaway is we went to, like you said, you went to every training camp practice. I missed one, but I guess that's the one we were like. I guess out of all the ones to miss, that was the one to miss. It was kind of the day where a kind of QB struggle. But I think the
Purdy had
biggest
the
take,
day off.
yeah, Purdy got the day off. I think the biggest takeaway from this thing is, you got a lot of people they're reading into these stats and this and that, but you have to look at the body of the work. There was a lot of context, right? Of who was going up against who. Obviously, Brock Purdy got every single first team rep. Like, he's QB1 without a doubt because of the fact, he played with the ones. Kyle Shanahan's giving him the go ahead. He's not going to play first preseason game. That's pretty much, the rite of passage for the quarterback. But the thing is, we got to hope that Brock Purdy doesn't have any setbacks or, any limitations, which right now Kyle says there's no problems. He's coming off a major injury, and you got to realize with Kyle Shanahan's offense, you got to hope that all the other guys behind the starter are ready to roll. You never know when you got to put your hard hat on. And to me, the biggest takeaway I saw out of this training camp was Trey Lance really, really, he got better this year than he was in the past. And, a lot of people are going to hate on Trey, but Trey Lance came into camp very motivated. The new mechanics, he worked alongside Patrick Mahomes, his quarterback coach. And I think that was something that really helped him. Came in very confident. He had a lot of really strong days at training camp. Today wasn't one of his best days, but I don't think any quarterback really did great today. Aside from Brock in that red zone period, I mean, even he stunk it up today. So I think the biggest takeaway again is Trey Lance really, really improved this year in terms of accuracy, confidence. He got the ball out quick, and Sam Darnold, he was consistent. He wasn't overly great. He wasn't horrible, like overly horrible. He played it safe, very conservative. He did what Kyle wanted him to do. So if he had to play in this offense, he's going to move the ball. He's going to be a game manager, and he's going to do what Kyle wants him to do. He's going to be a yes man. So if it comes down to Sam Darnold, can he operate the offense? Yeah, he can. Is he going to do anything, amazing to get the ball down the field? No, he's going to deliver the ball to the playmakers. He's not going to take much shots downfield. That's not his game. But Trey Lance, he's shown that he's not afraid to take shots downfield if he has to. So overall, I mean, you got to also credit this defense. The 49ers have an amazing defense, and that was seen on every day, and especially today. The defensive line, I think the comment right here from Jason Hess, he says, Farrell won the day. Clelin Ferrell today, I mean, he killed it today. There were so many times he was in the backfield, and he killed Trent Williams. Like, Trent Williams, I don't know if Trent Williams was just, sissy footing it or just taking it easy, but Clelin Ferrell, whoo, he was crushing today.
Tackle for a loss, a lot of pressures, sacks. There's so many sacks today. Holy smokes.
Yeah,
Sacks on sacks on sacks for all the QBs. And not a lot, a ton where the QBs were holding the ball for a long time. Just good pressure. I mean, it really highlights the thing that I've been saying all along, which is our defense is much deeper than our weapons or our O-line, especially when you have Jalen Moore and John Feliciano out on the O line. It gets really, really thin after the first five. And even McKivitz did well at first, but he's been falling back to earth a little bit more recently. So, interesting to see all that stuff for sure. Randy says we have 4 quality options just in case the poop hits the fan. Interesting. Well, I don't think 4 quality options. I think we have 2 that could be quality, but nobody looked quality today. I mean, like you said, Purdy in the red zone, he hit three consecutive TDs. Lance had to throw the day to Ray McLeod. I guess you were telling me there was some question about that, so I had to check my notes. And in my notes, I had Lance handing off to Mason, Lance hitting Ray for 25, 35, big, huge play, laser down the middle, throw of the day, Trey Lance. And then there was a false start, and then he lost his series. That was his whole series was 3 plays. So anybody thinks that Purdy was in the middle of 2 Lance plays, I got news for you, folks. You're wrong, Brad Graham or whoever reported that. Get a better prescription on your glasses or whatever you need. But anyone questioning Raj on that is out of their mind. I was sitting with Raj. I was sitting with John Chapman, Breezy, Rohan, who is an ace at this stuff. Man, we were all in agreement. It was Trey Lance to Ray McLeod for the pass of the day. Period.
Yeah, he had a lot of dots this whole training camp, and that's the thing, because a lot of times people are saying, mix things and can't like that. I think that was the biggest thing is the reporters reporting one way, and then you got other people reporting another way, and then I feel like that was the only thing with the whole coverage of training camp is everybody tried to be, they got to report what they got to report and what they see, but there was a lot of people that were trying to get their narrative out there. But hey, today Trey made a big play, and we got to credit for that. Did he have the best day overall? No, but he made some big plays, and that was a quality pass, to Ray. But overall,
he also had a TD pass to Conley that we all agreed was a TD pass. But then Jack Hammer says, "Oh no, they didn't signal TD." But Lombardi had it as a TD, and it seems like pretty much everybody had it as a TD. I don't know, but I mean,
because I saw him put the hand, and that's the whole premise of this. Now that we've been in training camp, it's over. We went to pretty much every training camp. That's the thing. There were so many reports. One guy said this, and then another guy said this. There were so many conflicting reports coming out of that camp, and I try to be, as unbiased as I could. Me and Rohan tried to call it like we saw, because me and Rohan sat next to each other with you. That's the way we had to go, and I feel like a lot of people put their spin on it, which it is what it is. But hey, man, we saw what we saw. We reported what we saw, and ultimately, I feel like Trey really growed in this training camp. And to me, the thing with Brock Purdy, whether you like him or not, the fact that he's healthy and he completed training camp and he got through it without any limitations or setback. To me, that's a W for Brock. It's a W for Trey that he got through this training camp, and he looked better than he was last year at training. Because I was at every single training camp last year. It was a mixed bag for Trey, and I was like, this is the year they were supposed to unleash him. This was last year. He kind of looked like a mixed bag. So this year he looked a lot more comfortable in the offense. He looked very comfortable this year. But again, there was a lot of conflicting reports out there. But I see both of those guys as having a strong training camp for different reasons. Was Brock Purdy overwhelming? Was he making these amazing passes? No, there was times where he was behind a receiver. He missed high on a Kittle pass today over the middle. He threw some 50-50 balls, which could have went the other way. Could have went to the defense. Thankfully, we have some great players that can make some great plays on offense, but you never know how that's going to go against another team. But again, defense was crushing. And I think there's one thing you mentioned, Ted, that overall through this whole training camp experience, they had to stagger the reps a lot. And that, sometimes you're sitting on the sideline for 20 minutes, even if you're throwing the ball, you can get cool. You're not going to keep that intensity. You might get a little fatigued, or you might lose you might get a little, lose your hype on the sideline. Although you're trying to, they got 4 quarterbacks trying to get them all reps. Early on in training camp, Brandon Allen was taking a lot of snaps, and everybody's like, whoa, what's going on? As training camp kind of progressed, Allen got less reps. But, there's some times where Trey Lance or Sam Darnold were waiting for 30 minutes before they got to go back in, the way they rotated. So I feel that was hard for all these quarterbacks to be able to get as many snaps as they could, because you got to get everybody reps, and if Kyle wants all these guys to be able to run this offense, sometimes these guys were waiting for a long time in between reps. It was hot out there. I'm sure the players felt it, because we felt it. You had all the sunscreen all over you. Everybody knows Ted was packing the sunscreen, so I can
Gooped
only imagine
up.
how these players were feeling. But I feel like that was one of the big themes of this training camp is they really had to stagger the reps, and that definitely puts a person at disadvantage. But hey, that it is what it is. You got to go out there and make the most out of your reps, and I think Trey did that. You know, there was again some really standout practices last week. I think every practice that I saw last week was a good practice for Trey. Now today, I think compared to last week was definitely subpar compared to those. And then I read, and you told me on Saturday, it kind of started slow, but he finished strong. So overall, again, Trey compared to where he was last year, way better training camp.
There you go. Yeah, and you talk about differing viewpoints in training camp and different stats. I'll get to that in a second. As far as different viewpoints for the show, some people are on your channel watching, some people are on my channel. Just encourage people on my channel, make sure you get over and give our SF 49ers a like and subscribe, and please do the same for me. Also, if you're watching on a PC, or a Mac, open up a second tab on your browser, watch both at once, get us some extra view hours. And or if you're on a phone, you could do it on a tablet, 2 devices. It really helps out. But Bash was saying also great to meet you. I got to meet him today afterwards, and he was saying too bad you didn't get to meet Raj. Raj had to work, unfortunately. But yeah, I got to meet Bash and Laura Cat after the game or after the practice. And as far as different viewpoints, that's one of the things about camp. Everybody's sitting in a different place. There's columns that block your view. There's players that block your view. There's distance that blocks your view. That was one of the things that really upset me today was that on Saturday, the 11-on-11s were on the far field. And so every day they've been back and forth. And then finally today, they didn't go back and forth. They stayed on the far field for the first time. So we had a poorer view of the 11-on-11s than we should have normally. But, keep in mind with training camp, folks, like this is not an exact science. Like there is no, 8 camera angles. There is no zoom. There is no slow-mo. There is no replay. There is no announcer. So it's not like, we're all seeing the same thing and making 8 different conclusions from it. It's like, we're all seeing different things. And so and unless you have folks with you, it's very difficult to keep track of this stuff yourself. So that's probably what happened to Brad Graham was he was probably by himself and thought it was Purdy and there was nobody there. So like, no, dude, that was Lance, bro. We had, because we had redundancy. We had Raj, we had Rohan, me, John Chapman, and Breezy all together today. It really helps to have a bunch of different sets of eyes, but that sort of explains, sometimes it's not bias that's doing it. It's just like vision. You're not seeing the same exact thing.
Yeah, I think point there, Ted, because sometimes the plays, like they go so fast. And if you're taking notes and then you look up, the play's going, you're like, oh crap, what happened? You got to have your neck on a swivel. So sometimes,
like in a game, a lot of times there are no substitutions between plays, and it's a 45-second clock. And this is like 10 or 15 seconds. There's wholesale changes, O-line, weapons, QB changing constantly. So it's a lot harder to keep up with for sure. So, take it easy on your criticism of folks that were there. And don't think that because you saw some stat from there that like you're a freaking expert, because stats without context can be very misleading, folks. Like if Darnold is dinking and dunking all day and has a higher completion percentage than Lance, who had the freaking throw of the day and pushes the ball downfield, like that's not necessarily better. It wasn't better. Lance was better than Darnold today. Lance has always been first or second every single day, and Darnold has had 2 days where he was the worst, straight up the worst quarterback on the field. So like if you're sitting here trying to tell me that Darnold won the freaking competition, like go pound rocks, go talk to somebody who was there, who's honest. They'll tell you that ain't the facts. Jack?
Yeah, I don't think Sam Darnold beat out Trey Lance in this training camp. Now, was he able to, like I said, run the offense? Absolutely. I think again, he's Kyle Shanahan's yes man. This is like Jimmy Garoppolo. And someone mentioned how many times did Jimmy get picked in the joint practice? We'll get to that. But that to me, I wanna say this. Like I know we were sitting here fighting about who's better, this quarterback. Like there's people that are getting upset at a quarterback for the 49ers for near interceptions or a pick here and there. Like, yeah, Brock threw some picks, Trey threw some picks. Sam Darnold didn't. He had some near picks. But, some of these quarterbacks, they get chastised when they make a bad play. Have you guys been keeping up with the Raiders training camp report? I mean, this man, Jimmy, there was a tweet the other day, and I almost spit my damn drink out because the guy, Vic Tarfer, who covers the Raiders over there, I think he works for The Athletic, he says, Jimmy's struggling with the deep pass. He's very inconsistent. Hopefully he should be able to tune it up. He's coming off an injury, and I laughed. Everybody in the comments was like, "Is somebody going to tell him?" Like he was throwing picks. The defense was eating him. Like we are long from the days where Jimmy Garoppolo was coming into training camp throwing 4 picks to Fred Warner. And as bad as some people think Trey Lance or Brock Purdy is or Sam Darnold is, not any of them had a day where they threw multiple picks to, Fred Warner or Greenlaw or whoever the case is. Like, yeah, they threw some picks here and there. Trey Lance had some bad plays here and there, but it was not as bad as what we've seen in the past with Jimmy at them. So let's put that out there. I was happy seeing all 3 of these quarterbacks go out there and really work and compete. It definitely was competition, and whether you think Brock was given the job or not, because he was, but it really was a competition. You can tell these guys were trying to one up each other. The competition really brought out brought out the best in each other. I think Trey and Brock were pushing each other. Like there was days where I feel like Brock was out there and he's like, I can't let Trey get the best out of me. That's just the way I felt, the vibe I got. And Sam Darnold too. I think he came into this camp trying to prove himself that he belongs on this roster and says, hey, look, I might have been cast out on many teams, but I want to prove that I can be on this team. And this is a team that's had more talent than I've ever had, because he played for the Jets in Carolina. They didn't have the talent that the Niners had. So I think all these quarterbacks really tried to push themselves to be the best version of this stuff. So it was a damn good camp, man, in terms of quarterback and how intense they were. Because this is my 3rd straight year going to training camp. And I think the intensity this year was higher than I've ever seen at the quarterback position. It was absolutely amazing, Ted. That's the way I seen it from the last 3 years. These guys came out this year smoking. I've never seen the quarterback room this intense. And I think the 49ers may have one of the best overall quarterback rooms, in terms of the NFL. So I think it was a very good job. I think they all fought hard. But I hope Trey Lance really shines in the preseason, because that's what we got coming up next. And we'll see, man. We'll see. Obviously, Brock Purdy's not going to play in that first preseason game. So this really is a good opportunity for Trey Lance to continue to show where he's grown from last year to this year. So I'm excited to see what Trey's going to do in the preseason. I'm sure you are.
I am, but Raj, preseason is like mostly scrubs on scrubs, right? I mean, it's going to be, piss poor pass protection and unreliable weapons for Lance. I mean, I like Chris Conley. I like Danny Gray, Tay Martin. They've done pretty well, but they're not, Debo, Ayuk, Kittle, CMC, Juice that Purdy's had to work with. So, I just remember when Lance hit the big one last year to Danny Gray in the Green Bay game. I was there at Levi's, and it's just sort of like, yeah, but it was mostly second and third string Green Bay defenders. So it's hard to win a job in that type of scenario. I think if it's going to happen, it'll have to be in the Raiders scrimmage or the Raiders joint practices. And even then, like, people are like, oh, everything's going to come down to that for Trey Lance. And I'm like, honestly, that defense is not very good, so I don't know if it's really that great of a feat to defeat the Raiders D. They got sort of like their linebackers. I've never heard of any of them before, I mean, they have Crosby, the defensive end. But outside of him, there's really not a lot on that. It just kind of reminds me of the Rams with Aaron Donald and like, who's there? Like,
yeah, I think their starters are pretty, they got some good starters. Marcus Peters, Max Crosby. Like, there's a few guys here and there.
That's right. They got Peters from the Ravens. Yeah, he's good, but he's kind of on the tail end. He's not what he once was. Like, when he went from the Rams to the Ravens, like that was a big pickup for them for just a 5th round pick. Yeah, I was like, the Rams got over big time on that one.
Yeah,
not the Rams, the Ravens.
Ravens. That was a steal for them. And you're right. Like, he's kind of at the tail end of his career, so it's not like he's a CB1. But I think that's a big takeaway from this training camp is, yes, Brock or yes, Trey did do well, but you got to remember he was playing with the guys of Chris Conley and Tay Martin and guys like that, like you said, and nothing to take away from them, because Chris Conley had himself a training camp. But that's what we're going to see in preseason. He's not going to be playing the Debos, the Ayuks. He's going to be playing with those guys, and that's
no Trent Williams and no Brendel. That's the big one, Brendel. Like, you don't even think Brendel's that good until you see our second team center. Like, bad snap. Half the freaking snaps are in the dirt to all these guys, and it's not just Lance. It's Darnold and Allen too. are like constantly scooping the ball out of the dirt, and they're starting to play at a disadvantage because they're not even able to look downfield to see what's going on until a second or two later than they're supposed to. So maybe that contributed to some of those sacks today.
Yeah, I think that was a big part of not just today, but the whole training camp. And I've said it a lot that the backup center position definitely has been an issue. They got to continue to build that. These next preseason games, I feel like, are going to be monumental for really developing that depth of the O line. Because after Jake Brendel, I couldn't tell you any of these guys are worth rostering as center. I mean, they're going to need a backup. But Nick Zakelj looked absolutely lost out there snapping the ball. I know Feliciano can play backup center, but they played him a lot at the guard spot. So who knows what they're going to do with that. But you're right. Like today, there was a lot of bad snaps, and it's just been an overarching theme of this training camp. It's just bad snaps. And like, it's scary. It's scary because that's, you're not just for the backups like Trey and stuff when he's in and to assess his overall, training camp assessment, but just in general. Like, let's say anything happens to Jake, Brendel. I hope it doesn't. But what happens if he goes down for a couple weeks and then you got to rely on a guy like Zakelj who's still developing? He's not ready. I can't, picture us having very, good moments at times with him and his issues fumbling and, not being able to handle the snap. So that's something that worries me. I think you mentioned this earlier was, the D-line really cooked and they look good. But I think that says a lot of this offensive line I think the defensive line is way ahead of this offensive line. And even Trent Williams looked sluggish. I don't know if he was just kind of packing it in because it was the last open practice and, he just wants to make it through healthy. But still, Clellan got the upper hand. Austin Bryant was cooking off that edge today. Like all of these guys. And then the thing that's crazy is Nick Bosa's not even out there, Ted. Nick Bosa's not out there. And this D-line was cooking. So it's a good thing for us because this D-line looks great without Bosa. They're only going to be better. But it also tells us the O-line is a little bit behind. But this D-line is
good. Go ahead. Yeah. Sorry, I didn't mean to catch up. But I was going to say, it's bad when you're like cheering for the backup center. Like, hey, you got to snap right. Like this is supposed to be automatic every time. And we're like clapping and cheering when they got one. It was so infrequent. So, I mean, trouble.
Yeah. That was my biggest thing. That my biggest kind of complaint coming out of this training camp with all the positions. If you really want to say one, my biggest concern, and Big Time 925 says there needs to be an emphasis on the O-line. Everyone besides Trent is questionable. Like I think that is, I wouldn't say everybody's questionable, but everyone besides the starters is definitely questionable. We don't know what the depth's going to look like. Jalen Moore had an injury. Leroy Watkins, there was times where he looked good. There was times where he looked like gutter trash. So I don't know. Colton McKivitz, he looked really good early on, and then he kind of, I don't know if he was struggling or if he was tired. He didn't look as great as he did early on in camp. I like Burford and Banks really stuck out the whole camp. They look really good. I think they're going to be solid guards for years to come. Again, Trent's going to be a man among men. He's going to be dominant, but for how much longer? How many more years is Trent going to be there? So that left tackle position, definitely something they got to address. And again, Colton McKivitz, he's a wild card. I think he'll do good, but he kind of went up and down. And did the fatigue get to him? Because he's never played a long season. I think that's a big thing that people have to realize. Like, I think Colton McKivitz might start off the season good, but fatigue gets to you. Just like Drake Jackson last year, his endurance couldn't help him out towards the end, and he couldn't last the season. Is that going to happen to Colton McKivitz? I don't know. And last year, Burford, he split with Dan Brunskill. So, this year he's expected to take a lot more snaps. He does look stronger, but endurance comes into this. You're going to war in the trenches with the offensive linemen. Endurance is a big factor for those O-linemen. So big question to me, man. I don't know. That's the way I see it.
Yeah, some red flags for sure. No doubt about it. Real quick, just want to call out Laura Cat in the audience. I called her out earlier, but she probably wasn't here yet. Also, Alex Conklin in the audience. He's been a big-time Trey Lance defender out on the timeline. But I think this is the first time I've seen him in the show. So thanks for joining, Alex.
Shout out to everybody in the chat. Appreciate y'all for tuning in and hopping in. Make sure you hit that like button. Hop on to my man Ted's channel. Go ahead and subscribe to his. He's on the quest to 1,000 subscribers. He's close. Go hook my boy Ted up with some followers. He was there every day.
Close to 500.
We're getting there. We're closing in, Ted. We're closing in.
Yeah, but that's the first level of monetization. Then I can have, members of my channel, and I can have super chats at that point.
There we go. Get him there. We close. He was putting in the work for us all training camp. So let's get my boy there. Speaking of putting in work, we talked a lot about Brandon Ayuk in this training camp. He was the star of training camp. But after him, and we know Debo is going to be Debo. He looks like he's back in shape, and he looks like he's going to be Debo of 2021. But after that, the wide receivers, it's kind of wide open. I feel like there was a really good, strong contingent of wide receivers. We know Juwan Jennings will be wide receiver 3, but after that, it's wide open. We mentioned Chris Conley's name. I talked about him almost every day after training camp. Like, he had a great training camp. Tay Martin had some days where he was really flashing. Ronnie Bell, the rookie, he's going to make it hard on this team to cut him and throw him into the practice squad. And then you got Danny Gray, who really stepped up towards this last week and just really figured out, getting the routes down, the timing down. He was more aggressive. He was making big catches. Like today, corner end zone pass, I think it was from Brock. He missed the touch. Like, he drops the pass, but you could see Danny was like frustrated at himself. I didn't see that from him last year. Last year he made the play, or he missed the plays, like whatever. And I could see that this year he's matured a lot. And that's something that Kyle wanted to do. I felt like last year Danny Gray just thought he was going to beat everybody because he had speed, and I'm going to be good. I'm in the NFL. I'm the man. This year you can see the difference. I heard that he was staying after, really working on game prep, focusing on film. So this wide receiver group is going to be intense. What do you think? What was your takeaways on the wide receiver group?
Yeah, I mean, Chris Conley was the standout. Probably Danny Gray and Tay Martin tied after that. They both did really well. Ronnie Bell's doing well for a rookie, but he's a rookie.
Yeah.
But Danny Gray, Purdy's his quarterback. Don't expect much, folks. I mean, once again today, Purdy was overthrowing everything deep or underthrowing it. He just was not good. He was really great in that move the ball period, but the rest was pretty bad. He overthrew Debo. He overthrew Kittle. He had the pick 6, and then somebody's like, "Oh, you didn't tell me that Dre Greenlaw tipped that time." And I'm like, well, is that a weapon? Because if a weapon tips it and you get intercepted, then that's excusable, because then that's on the weapons. But if it's a linebacker tipping it, then he just should have intercepted it himself. Like, what the hell are you talking about? Like, somebody's trying to clown me with this. I'm like, this is not funny, guys, when your supposed franchise quarterback is throwing pick 6s nearly every practice. Not funny. Not funny. Not to me anyway. I don't find humor in
that. Those picks you got to clean up. And again, I feel like his worst passes, as you mentioned, were those deep passes. And that's something he has to really clean up. Like, over the middle, short passes, the move the ball period, red zone. When it's a short area, Purdy he can move the ball. Like you said, move the ball period. Was very efficient, quick pass, boom, slant over the middle. But
Friday too. Today and Friday. But then all the rest was like, not garbage, but it was pretty bad. It was definitely not good.
And again, and I know he's recovering, but let's just say flash forward to the playoffs. Like, you want him to be able to stretch the field and make those big plays. So in the future, if Brock has to be able to hit those big time plays. He's got to be able to hit those deep passes, because when we're playing in the playoffs, you got to take shots. You got to keep teams keep them honest, keep them at bay. So I think
keep those defenders out of the box.
Yeah.
There won't be any spy on him, that's for sure. They will not waste a spy on Brock Purdy. He's quick, but he is not fast. He's not going to run away from anybody after more than a few steps.
Yeah, he has more speed than I would assume the guy has just on first look. But yeah, he doesn't have like breakaway speed. There was a moment where he was flushed out of the pocket today from Clelin Ferrell. He ran it. Obviously, they're not running at full speed, the defensive players. So who knows what would have happened to him in a real game. But he was able to rush up to the sideline and run it in, take it in. But that breakaway speed is just something he doesn't have. So hopefully, they can protect him. And that's why I said this offensive line has to hold up, because Brock's a small guy. Like, if you go out there and look on the field, I mean, he looks very, very diminutive in stature. I mean, I know I'm a small guy, but for a quarterback, he definitely is a shorter in terms of, overall stature. He's a small guy. He's bulked up a little bit this year. He definitely has put on the weight. But those are things you worry about. This O-line has to be able to protect Brock. He's got to be able to make those downfield passes. And how much will he utilize a guy like Danny Gray? I don't know if he will this much, that much this year. I know Ayuk, I know CMC, I know Debo, Kittle, those yak guys, they're going to get the ball in space, but that's a tough game, so he does have to be able to stretch the field down a little bit more. But again, that's where if there is any issues down the line, you hope that Trey's ready to roll for a moment. But again, we'll see what happens down the season. But I feel like this team has overall just a strong base of weapons. Now they got to stay healthy and they got to execute to get down to the stretch. They got to start hot too, as the season opens up, in a couple of weeks. So they have to start hot. Hopefully they
Yeah,
avoid injuries too.
in Pittsburgh against T.J. Watt and Alex Highsmith against McKivitz making his first ever NFL start at right tackle. And it's just like, I got concerns about that too, because we haven't seen McKivitz against Bosa. We don't have anybody even like Highsmith, let alone TJ Watt, for him to, iron sharpen iron against. Real quick, also, just wanted, hey, Peter Parker said, drop the IG, Ted. It's Ted _talks _ball. You can find all my properties either in Twitter or YouTube or IG. If you just look in the info, it guides you to all the rest. So if you can find one, you can find them all.
There we go. One stop shop. Now let me get to this real quick. I think someone had a question. Big time says, how does Gray fit into the scheme with Purdy at quarterback? And I think Ted answered that. It really doesn't look like he fits into that scheme. Unless he's going to be able to take those quick slants over the middle, play the slot, and make those intermediate catches. But I feel like that's the thing that like we just said, Brock Purdy. He's not going to be delivering the long pass. He it's a bit of his long pass. He has it. He can throw it deep. He just doesn't have the accuracy deep. And if you're trying to hit that play, you got to be on the money to get it to Danny.
Yeah, and everybody goes, "Oh, you overthrew it deep. His arm must be better," And it's like, first of all, anybody who thinks Purdy is physically or mentally back to 100%, I got a bridge to sell you, okay, for starters. And second of all, when you lack arm strength, I'm not gonna say noodle arm or anything that mean, but he has limited arm strength. I'll say that. That's no problem saying that. He has limited arm strength, and when you have that, a lot of times you overthrow things deep because it's deep. You just put everything you got to try and get it there. And then you a lot of times overthrow because you have no touch to modulate, 80, 90, 100%. It's just all either like 70 or 100. And so a lot of times you overthrow, just like Jimmy overthrew Sanders in the Super Bowl. And Jimmy does not have a cannon of an arm, folks.
I think that's fair. If you can't throw it, relatively far, consistently, you try to put a little bit too much into it, and then that's when you get the misses and stuff. So I mean, hopefully he can continue to grow in that area. But obviously, we know Trey has the big cannon, and you want him to be in that spot. This is a big question here, big time. I think you kind of touched on this, Ted, where why is Bosa taking so long? We need him there ramping up the season so he doesn't get hurt. I'm not too worried about Bosa in terms of ramping up and getting himself ready. This guy is super disciplined. He's always training him. Kyle trusts him. They know he's staying in shape. Like, this is a guy that he eats, lives, and breathes working out. Like, this guy's a gym rat. I'm sure he's going to be there getting his body prepared. The thing that I'm worried about a little bit, and you kind of touched on this, is making sure McKivitz can be up to speed and guys like that, because you're right. McKivitz isn't going up against a TJ Watt in practice. I mean, no discredit to Clellan Ferrell and Taco Charlton and Drake Jackson. I think they'll be solid players on this D-line, but they're not all pro defensive player of the year, Nick Bosa. So the discrepancy there is big, for a guy like Colton McKivitz. You're right. The first game we play, we go up against TJ Watt. You think they're going to put him up against Trent Williams? They're going to move him over as much as they can to go and take Colton McKivitz if they're smart. I know for a fact Colton's going to be matched up on TJ Watt a few times, and it's going to be a nightmare matchup for him. This is going to be his first start, taking over for Mike McGlinchey here. And again, it's going to be a long season for this guy. He's going to be an X factor. And if he looks bad out there, the memes are going to be flying because they were for Mike McGlinchey. They're not going to be easy on this guy. So definitely something to think about. I love Bosa. I think he's going to have himself in shape, but it's the other guys that need Nick Bosa out there.
Absolutely. Yeah, I have no doubts. And I think part of it is they're just trying to spare him from camp where there's all these people that are trying to make their way, trying to make their mark, and they just don't want him to get hurt. So I think they'll get it done soon. I think it'll be 32, 33 million a year and a lot guaranteed, and everyone will be happy.
Yeah, I think they'll have it out eventually. It's a numbers game. You just got to be patient. I think they'll lock it in, and he'll have the highest paid contract in NFL in terms of defense. It would be nice to see him out there now, but it would have been cool to see him at training camp. But I get it. He's got to take care of himself and get that contract before he sets a foot on field. Just like last year, Nick Bosa, or sorry, Debo. He didn't want to set field set foot on a field to the contract because there's a risk for injury. So I get it. I understand the business part of the game, but I'm sure Bosa will be ready when the time is there.
Just look at just look at Joe Burrow. Imagine if he had torn his Achilles. That
I
would
know.
be it
No,
would have been
that's the thing.
tragic. So,
He's in the middle of trying to work towards this contract. So it's tough, man. The business is tough. You want your best players to be out there, but at the same time, you need them when you really need them. Training camp, I guess you know they're not necessary there all the time. If Joe would have blew his leg out, I mean that would have been the end of their season, no matter what. Like it just that's it, that's it.
I mean,
Um,
if we think QB struggled, thinks how much they would have struggled with Bosa there. It would have been a
I know
disaster.
exactly. Well, that's the thing. These quarterbacks had some moments, and we talked about how good this D line was. Imagine if Bosa there. Do you think Purdy would have been having a good day with Bosa there? You think Trey Lance would have been having a good day? Sam Darnold would have been on the injured list probably. Like you know,
I was just gonna say maybe we weren't trying to protect Bosa as much as the quarterbacks from Bosa. That might really
maybe
be
you're right.
it.
Maybe you're right. I mean, it would have been crazy because Clellan Farrell was working, and Taco Charlton had some days where I was like, "Oh my God, these two guys are looking great." I imagine Nick Bosa there, he would have done it with ease. I mean, he probably would have had 20 sacks a period. You know, like we talked about how Jimmy had like 5 picks in a period. Can you imagine you get sacked like 10 times by Bosa or something? I think that would have been the report of camp. Oh, Brock Purdy on his back 10 times from Nick Bosa. Trey Lance 5 sacks from big. Like that would have been the story of training camp. No.
No doubt
Bash
about it.
kind of reminded. He says the one thing I noticed today was TDP did work. So we talked about TDP a lot when we were at Camp Ted. Me and you, we noticed he stood out. Jordan Mason, obviously Elijah Mitchell is dealing with the abductor strain. He's hurt. He's always hurt, unfortunately. Like, what
But
do we
can we
do?
can we call out a little bit too? Because I think this happened since the last time we talked, where like the linebackers were tackling him to the ground, like and him specifically more than others, and it was Greenlaw and Warner, and
Hmm?
that's what started the big brawl. And like Fred was getting into trouble with Ayuk for this last off season. And it's like, what the hell are these guys? I mean, I get it. You want to play hard. You want to set an example. You want to be a leader. But like, injuring your teammates is not the goal of training camp, folks. So, and they even did it. Then they did. Remember they did to CMC, and
Yeah,
CMC got up
yeah.
and had words with Dre. It didn't start a fight, but it was like, and that's when it all ended. Then it stopped happening after that. But we're like, man, if you hurt CMC, I mean, he's like kind of the franchise right now. I mean, he is arguably our most important offensive player until proven otherwise. Sorry, even Trent Williams, I don't know, is more important than CMC. The way we went 12-0 with CMC as a starter, it's hard to argue anything otherwise. 4-0 with Jimmy and 8-0 with Purdy.
No, I agree with that. Is these linebackers are tough. I love them. I love their energy. I love how great they are. But in practice, they did play rough. I mean, it kind of towards the end they didn't play as aggressive as they were. But you're right. Early on in camp, they were taking shots. They were hitting them hard. And Elijah Mitchell, I feel like I don't know if he was being targeted, but they were coming. They were roughing him up. They were roughing him up. Maybe it's because TDP and Mason they're kind of those hard hitting type running back. Like they're gonna hit you back. And Elijah Mitchell, he's not gonna sit there and deliver the boom as much as those guys because those guys were dropping their heads down. There was times where Mason was just clubbing. And I was like, whoa, what a hard run, what an aggressive run, powerful run. TDP just chugged and put his head down with some powerful runs, right? And then
Beast
TDP,
mode, Marion Barber type
yeah,
vibes.
yeah. Mitchell was getting thrown around a little bit, and you're right. I feel like I love Fred. I love his energy. I love Dre. I love his energy. But man, they were trying to come at those guys, and that's why the fight broke out. Like you said, the moment CMC stepped up and he looked at Dre Greenline, and he said, "Look, that's not how we do it here." The whole tone changed in that whole offense, like the whole practices after that moving forward. Like that was a big move for CMC. So A, that tells me, yeah, he's a captain, and B, yeah, they respect the hell out of him. Like you said, he's probably the most important player to this team because CMC, when he came onto this team last year, the offense just changed, and they respect the hell out of CMC. And speaking of CMC, that guy's phenomenal. The stuff he did in training camp, like he made it look so effortless. He was so easy. Like today, one-handed grab during one-on-ones. I don't remember. He was up against the linebacker. I can't remember the linebacker, but he just one-handed touchdown corner pass. Oh my God! Some of the stuff he did was just incredible. We're lucky we have him.
Yeah, no doubt about it. He's a gem. Second, third, fourth, and fifth picks. we fleeced the Carolina Panthers. We got a hell of a deal, and we're so lucky to have him, Debo, Kittle, and Ayuk. It's an embarrassment of riches. There's just nothing else like it in the league.
Yeah, definitely an embarrassment of riches. It's crazy, man. This talent is insane. Again, they got to stay healthy. Yeah, and Ayuk, we barely even talked about him. How amazing was he in camp? I don't even know how many catches he had. I lost count. He didn't practice today. He was in sweats, but he probably had about 30 catches.
I think
In
Grant had him for 33 in the first
33.
9 practices. Yeah,
That's crazy. That's a lot,
yeah.
man. I mean, and every time they threw to him, it was pretty much a catch. Like there's a few targets that he didn't catch. There was one where he dove for it, just dives to the side, and you could tell he wanted it so bad. Made a great break on it, but overall, this guy just cooked. Can't like when you got CMC playing that great. When you got Ayuk there, and Debo looks like he's 2021 Debo, and Kittle's Kittle. I don't know who's going to stop us on this offense. So that was nice to see. The O
And
line,
that could be part of the reason why the offense struggled. Why all the QBs had kind of middling days today. Maybe Ayuk's been Mr. Training Camp, so that's probably part of the issue too today.
I think that's true because every time they looked for him and they were looking for Ayuk, they threw it to him. It was almost a complete like automatic because they were looking for guys that weren't Ayuk, and Danny Gray had a drop, and those guys like Conley and Tay Martin. Those guys aren't Brandon Ayuk. No disrespect to them, but they're not separating the way Brandon Ayuk was. Brandon Ayuk separating was just filthy at camp, man, unbelievable. So yeah, that's a good point. It's a good point, and he was making DB's lives a nightmare. And today I feel like the DBs played a lot tighter. It was easier for them to kind of step up and make plays today. So yeah, I think that definitely was a big component of it. It was no Brandon Ayuk there. Standing in sweats made the cornerbacks' lives a lot easier. I think even Diamo Lenore had a sack on one play coming in on a blitz. I mean that to me though just shows how aggressive Steve Wilkes is going to be. That's one thing I noticed in this training camp. Steve Wilkes is not afraid to blitz. He's not afraid to send a corner. I like that aspect of this defense. It's going to be very physical and very aggressive.
Yeah, no doubt about it. When you're talking about separation, I think there's one other receiver we should bring up, and that's Isaiah Winstead.
Mm.
Had a good day today, and he got a lot of separation in the film I watched on him before training camp, and he was starting to look like that today. That was obviously not against NFL caliber defensive backs or anything like that, but he had a real good day today as well too.
Yeah, he did. One-on-ones, he looked good. He was cooking those corners today. He's another guy, yeah, that's kind of taking a step in the right direction. Early on, very quiet, but you're right. With wide receivers, rookies especially, it's going to take them time to learn this offense and get the separation down. But again, we got a lot of young talent that's really good, and if we cut him, he can definitely be placed on somebody else's roster. So it's going to be tough when it comes down to cuts, and that's why preseason now the next step for these guys to really step in and make their name known and put some film on tape and make sure they can showcase their skills. Because I mean, I would love to keep Winston around this team, but who do you cut? I don't think they'll have more than 6 receivers. It's tough, especially if your first three are really good: Brandon Ayuk, Debo, and Juwan Jennings. After that, it's a battle, man. And who do you stick around? Just because he has potential, but he may not be ready, you may not want to keep him on the roster. So it becomes to this point where you might have to waive him and hope he gets to the practice squad. And I think that was kind of like what Kyle said with Brock Purdy last year. Is they didn't want to cut him because if they cut him, he'd probably end up being snagged by someone. So then they ended up cutting, Napoleon Dynamite, the guy they gave $2 million. What was our quarterback?
Nate Sudfeld.
Yeah, Nate Sudfeld. Everybody thought Nate Sudfeld was making this roster last year, right? They paid him a
Yeah,
lot of money to be a backup.
I did. I thought so.
That was surprising. So you never
Yeah.
know. If you play that good and Kyle is really impressed, you can make the roster. And Winstead, you're
Or
right.
or trade one of them for a high draft pick. I think I could see a trade of there's 3 position groups I feel like we're exceptionally stacked at: wide receiver,
Mm,
linebacker, and running back.
yeah.
I don't think we have room for all the guys, and I think that we have guys that somebody might give up a little something to trade for.
Yeah, that's a good point. Running back. I mean, that running back room. Oh, those undrafted guys, Laybourne and Awatt, look good. You can trade one of them, or maybe Elijah Mitchell because he's expendable now. with all those guys and the way TDP and Mason have looked. The wide receiver, there's so many good ones, which we mentioned. You can trade a guy like Juwan Jennings, who's a free agent next year, if you believe in one of those young guys. So I agree. You get something late round pick, and then linebacker, man. Whew, that linebacker room. We talked Greenlaw, Fred Warner, but Marcelino looks good. Oren Burks, he looks pretty good. D. Winters, the rookie, he's been kind of stepping up. So it's it's nice to have a lot of talent on all the positions on this team, and the 49ers do. So yeah, it's been nice. One position I want to get to that we haven't talked about much, tight end. What do you think about the tight ends overall outside of George Kittle?
I like Braden Willis.
Mm.
Latu runs good routes. He's had too many drops, but hopefully he can clean that up. Warner, I guess, keep him for blocking, and then Dwelly, bye-bye.
Yeah, Ross Dwelly had a very underwhelming training camp. I think Braden
He even
Willis.
had some drops. Remember, he's known for not having any drops, and he had some drops. So I mean, that's your one claim to fame. It's like Purdy and his quickness. Purdy has one freaking elite trait. It's quickness, a physical trait. Right? Obviously, he's great upstairs. I'm not going to knock him there. But as far as his little spider chart, there's literally one out there, and everything else is right at the axis, right?
Yeah.
Quickness and Dwelly, it's hands. He supposedly had never had a drop before, and I have seen him drop a few now. So yeah, he's slow. He can't block. We already knew that, So yeah, welcome Braden Willis and Cameron Latu, and goodbye Dwelly and Warner. Maybe we could trade him too. I doubt it. I don't think you
could. Maybe stick around for block. Maybe we trade Ross Dwelly. We're going to trade all these guys, Ted. If it's up to me and you, we trade them.
There you go. I know we're not going to get anything for Ross the Boss.
We
Peanut
might.
Butter and Dwelly.
I mean, at the end of the day, if he makes the roster, then it's a political move. George Kittle kept his boy because him and Kittle are tight. But I'll tell you what. Braden Willis, out of all the tight ends not named George Kittle, he's looked pretty damn solid. Over the last week, he stacked some good days, big catches, really good on his one-on-one reps. I think there's many times we're like, who is that? Oh, is that Braden Willis? Was that Braden Willis? Big catch, Braden Willis. He was consistent. He started off slow in training camp. I think they all did, especially him and Latu. But they both improved. Latu really improved over the last week. But you're right. He's had some issues with drops. He separates good. He's got to get a little bit more consistent, but he's gotten better over the last week. Braden Willis was really strong in terms of getting the ball, and once he gets it, he's got the hand. So I like what I've seen out of him. Charlie Warner, we know he's not known for his passing or pass catching abilities, but I don't even think he's worth keeping on the roster. And Ross Dwelly, man, he really disappointed me. I thought he was going to come in this camp and cook it up, especially with these two rookies right behind you, pressuring you. Very, very poor camp. So if it's up to me, yeah, I agree with you, Ted. You keep the two rookies with George Kittle, and you cut your ties with the other guys. Maybe they can stick around the practice squad.
Yeah, I mean, Warner had a catch in one-on-ones today. A nice one, I'll give it that. I'm like, was that his second catch of camp, right? I mean, it's really? Unbelievable. In the 10th practice. So, yeah, not good.
Yeah, I think we gave him a round of applause for that one. It was the first time I seen him really make a big, and it was just one-on-ones. It's not like it was in team drill. So
the golf clap.
Shout out Charlie Warner for that catch today. That was an impressive catch on one-on-ones. So, let's see. Preseason, got to make your names. These rookies are putting pressure. You got these rookies putting pressure. Speaking of rookies putting pressure, a lot of young talent on the secondary. Jair Brown, I like what I saw out of him in camp. I don't think he'll be a starter right away, but I love this kid's mentality. He looked very strong, consistent during camp overall. Secondary's, I feel like a strong unit, but it's still wide open. I think that final cornerback spot's still wide open in the air. Ambry Thomas, I think he needs to have the strong, out of every player in the preseason, he needs to have the strongest preseason out of every player on this team if he wants to make this roster, because his training camp was a blunder. That's just my opinion. I don't know. What do you think about the secondary?
Yeah, I mean, people were trying to say, oh, yeah, Purdy's going against the first team D. And I'm like, most of his completions are against Ambry and A.J. Parker, who are closer to off the team than first team folks. So let's not, get that twisted. Yeah, Ambry has been struggling. He did have a nice PBU the other day. Again, first one of camp. Good job, Ambry. But the rest is, he's just been burnt to the toast. So no good, no bueno. You know, yeah, I hope he can turn it around. I was hoping he would, because he was a man specialist coming out of Michigan, and Steve Wilkes is going to blitz more. She expected more man coverage on the back end, so I thought this could be his opportunity. But so far, no dice Ambry, no dice AJ Parker. Yeah, don't let the door hit you, folks, because that's what's coming. Unless, like you said, unless they have a big turnaround in preseason. But based on camp, what we watched, yeah, they
didn't look good. But around 3 picks, so they have high hopes. He was good coming out of Michigan. Although
I keep Jameson and Quantrez Knight and Womack and all those guys look better to me.
A lot of talent in the secondary. Yeah, like Oliver, Womack, Lenore, Mooney Ward.
The one guy. All right, here's one. Did you see much of Hartsfeld at all? Like, I feel like I didn't see him.
I was just thinking of Hartsfeld. I was just about to say. I said one guy that didn't stick out to me was Miles Hartsfeld. That's the guy they brought in, the veteran from Carolina.
I don't remember us ever talking about him.
Yeah, I don't think we did. Steve Wilkes said he brought him in because he's the veteran. He knows the scheme from Carolina. I thought he'd stick out a little bit more. I didn't even see the guy make one play during training camp. So Miles Hartsfeld, that's another guy. He's got to have a preseason to make this roster. So some guys, they stick out in training camp, and then they fall off the face of the earth in preseason. Some guys,
maybe he'll win it on special teams. I know he's got 4.3 speed, so maybe he could be a gunner or something.
Yeah,
I don't know.
I think that's the case, because a lot of players practice good. Like Ambry Thomas, 3 straight years of training camp. I've seen this guy now. He is horrendous at practice. Maybe he's just a better game player. And that's the thing. Maybe these guys that didn't do too good in training camp are going to play better in the game. Because sometimes practice, they're not great at it. They're just not good at practice. But again, with Kyle at the helm, he wants to see you do good at practice. Like, he gains his trust with these players in practice. And that, again, it goes a long way. The harder you practice, sometimes it sticks out to these coaches more, and you get more opportunities. They're going to get chances in preseason, but it's going to be slim. And those guys that have slim chances have to put in the work, because they're not going to get too many opportunities to put film on tape. And if they don't last with the Niners, they want to have some film out there for the rest of the league. So I don't know. I hope that Ambry can really showcase himself, because I like the guy, but he's just been horrible. Like I said, and same with Miles Hartsfeld. Like you said, I don't even think I have a note on him, Ted. Not one note.
Yeah. No, me neither. Real quick, just want to call out Ryan from No Border Sports in the chat, and CarCast 49ers. Thanks for joining. And Big Time 925 had one. He said, Ambry played so well at the end of 21. How did he fall off so bad? I think there was like some kind of, personal issues or something. Something came up. I know he had like some health issues through COVID, like Crohn's disease or something with his, digestive system. But then I think there was something that happened, like a family issue or something. And so maybe that mentally kind of just got him out of the right headspace. Because I thought he was going to pick up where he left off in 2022. I thought Lenore was going to be an afterthought, and nothing could be further from the truth. Lenore ascended and Ambry dropped off.
Yeah, it was the absolute reverse, because Lenore, he started pretty strong that first year in training camp, and then he kind of fell off. But he also said, he had some family issues, some personal things he was dealing with, mental health stuff. I think there was a family member that passed away for Lenore, really took him out of his mental space. And in the second year, you could see the work. He put in a lot more work. Last year is one of our better players in the playoffs, so it was a flip, So I don't know, whatever the case is, maybe it was a mental thing, but this is he's got an opportunity in the preseason. He's going to get a lot of chances, so he's got, I think, 3 games to really prove himself. That's a lot in the NFL. 3 games. If he can have a just nasty preseason, he'll make the team. And again, if he's a good person, if he's good in game situations, then he'll thrive. If he's just not good, they'll probably cut him. So we'll see. It's going to be an interesting preseason. Let's see, Ted, any sleepers that we didn't mention? Any guys that stood out to you that we haven't mentioned today in training camp? Because we were there every day, except I was not one. You were there every day. Who's someone that stood out to you that we didn't mention?
I think we've covered most of them, to be honest. I mean, there wasn't much of Juice Check. I'll just say that we didn't really use him as much as I thought. In fact, he was like returning kicks and some weird stuff and special teams. Yeah, but I'd like to see more Kyle in this offense moving forward. We're paying him all this money. I like. Okay, all right. We'll talk about Juice Check. Coletto, I think, has been pretty good as the backup fullback. So, I think the plan is to have him maybe try and push Juice Check out next year when he has a $7 million cap hit, which starts to get really expensive for a fullback.
I agree. I think eventually when they're ready to get rid of Juice because his contract's coming up and they won't extend him. I mean, he's made a lot of money from the 49ers. I think they're grooming Jack Coletto to take over, and he had a pretty good camp, actually. I would say, especially this last week, he made some nice plays. He looked good. He looked crisp. And again, I think the thing for Coletto and whoever's going to take Juice's spot is they got to learn how to block because even though we don't always utilize Juice in the offense, which we all want him to be utilized because he's such a good weapon, is he blocks like no other. Like he's so good in the blocking schemes. Coletto has to be 80% of that if we want to have a good replacement for Juice because he's important. Not a lot of teams use those fullbacks like us, but yeah, Coletto, I liked what I saw out of him. They'll probably practice squad him. We'll probably see some action from him in preseason. I liked what I saw out of him. One guy
I got one more. I got to start one more.
Yeah, go for it.
The only guy not named Jair Brown or Hufanga to be first out in the practice, and he did it twice. Leroy Watson, number 78, backup tackle, filling in for Jalen Moore. I think he's been better than Jalen Moore.
Yeah.
So there's my show out. Unexpected. He's a converted tight end. He was a tight end at UTSA when he played with Spencer Burford there. I think they're called the Rattlesnakes or something like that, or the Roadrunners. I think the UTSA Roadrunners. Somebody dropped that whatever mascot on me not too long ago. UTSA Roadrunner. Leroy Watson. I've been pleasantly surprised by him. So sometimes you can have addition by subtraction, and maybe Jalen Moore was addition by subtraction.
Yeah, he wasn't horrible. I mean, he was better than Jalen Moore, and I mean that's not saying a whole bunch, but
it's not.
He looked like a better swing tackle. I agree, and you're right. It's the Road Runners. I like that.
Remember,
elementary school, Louis E. Road Runners. Let's go, Road Runner pride, baby. Let's go.
There you go.
I got a question from Big Time. He says, "Who starts the season as linebacker 3?" This was the guy I was going to mention. He really ascended. He really came up as a guy that we kind of said before training camp was Marcelino McCreary Ball, man. This guy made a lot of big plays, covered a lot of ground, sideline to sideline, very fast linebackers, good instincts, a lot of PBUs in camp. He had a couple near interceptions. This guy, Marcelino McCreary Ball, if season started today and if he can have the preseason I think he's going to have, he's linebacker 3. What do you think, Tim?
I like what he's been doing. I feel like it's such a stacked room. I feel like D. Winters, he picked off Lance, but I don't think he's done a ton more than that. Jalen Graham has done well. DFF has had some picks and PBUs. But it seems like, Oren Burks, I thought early on might be the guy, but he seems to have fallen off. So I'll go with MMB, Marcelino McCreary Ball. Why not?
I like his game, man. He's just like a ball of energy. I think he's going to be the guy, linebacker 3. But I think the future, D. Winters, this guy, he really started to come in his own. And I noticed for the last 2 or 3 training camps, and I finally got the coverage on it today, the video. Dre Greenlaw, man, this guy's such a leader. He stayed after practice, and he worked specifically with D. Winters for a couple of days in a row. He was just making sure he got his technique down. The last 2 or 3 practices I was at, I noticed. I stayed after, and I was like, oh, look at Dre over there. And he was really working with D. Winters. So this is a guy that I think is going to learn a lot from these linebackers, and he's going to take it and become the next big linebacker. His future is bright. He might not be linebacker 3 this year. This guy's got a bright future on this team. D. Winters is going to be nice. Yeah, he's good. I don't know. Next up, we got preseason week 1. Unbelievable. The Raiders. I can't wait. I wish we were at joint practice over there. I feel like we got to do every joint practice now. I mean, after this week, these last couple weeks, it is bittersweet, like you said. I think the best part of these joint practices, obviously, getting to watch some Niners and all the players, but just connecting with everybody. I got to see my boy Ted every single day I was there. That was cool, man. We had our little crew. It was dope. We saw so many creators, out there, Niner Twitter. It's cool when you actually meet people. We saw Breezy, we saw Chapman, We saw Steph. We saw Rohan. We saw Ryan. We saw Jesse. Man, we saw Croc. We saw everybody out
Brian
there.
Rennick.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Brian. Nick. I mean, you name it, we were there. We saw it.
Celts
Pretty.
today.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it was.
That was
You got
crazy.
unblocked by Mike Silver. Like it was such a fun time, man. Um, Good stuff. It was good times. I can't wait for next year training camp. We're gonna be there again. It's gonna be fun.
Absolutely. Oh,
Yeah,
absolutely. I won't be anywhere else. That's for sure.
for sure, man. I was loving the camp. I think we had a fun time. Appreciate everybody that followed us along for our full coverage of training camp. But unfortunately, training camp is over tomorrow. Practice without the fans in the building. They're gonna go through their installments. The media will be there, and then after that, Wednesday's a day off. They go to Las Vegas. Thursday, Friday, joint practices with the Raiders early in the morning. Saturday, they'll go through walkthroughs. And Sunday, ladies and gentlemen,
1
the,
p.m.
the first preseason game of the entire season. Wow.
Scrubs
Unbelievable.
on scrubs.
Go, man. We're going to have to do a preview show probably Saturday night. I'm going to do a preview show Saturday night. So if you want to hop on, be there.
I'll do my best. Evenings and weekends are tough for me, but I'll do my best, Raj. For you, I'm
Sure.
sure my wife will let me do it.
Maybe, right.
There's a short list of folks where she's like, "Oh, if it's them, then
Maybe we'll do a Friday night. Yeah, you got you're living the life over there, Ted. Man, he's pulling tens over there. Making babies. This guy's living the life. Yeah, you got to make sure you do right by her. So
Absolutely, happy wife, happy life." So
right. Any
thanks, Raj.
final thoughts or comments here, Ted, before we head out?
No, it was just a lot of fun, and it was just crazy. I ran into you that first day, and then every day it was just like, DMing you on the way. Wade says 9 a.m. Here we go. And it's shuttle, and we got the spots, and it was so much fun to meet everybody. It was great to see the team, but I honestly think I said half the fun is meeting everybody, but I think it was closer to 3/4 of the fun was meeting all these content creators that I've done all these great shows with, but nothing like shaking hands and really getting to know somebody. And today I got to break bread a little bit with Breezy and Wayne and John Chapman and Laura Cat and Bashar. It was a lot of fun afterwards. I miss Deb was there too, and a few other folks. But anyway, yeah, thanks to everybody for your support. If you ask me again about camp, who's my source? I'm my source. I was there 9 days. I like Lance, but I'm not biased, folks. That's why, if you look at what people say, I said mostly the same stuff. I had Purdy winning today. I had Purdy winning Tuesday. I had, Lance winning the days he won and second on the days he didn't. Most people agree with that. So, I'm gonna stop responding to people that say I'm biased. You can pound salt.
I agree. At the end of the day, we did the best we could. We were out there. You were the source, Ted. So when I say Trey Lance looked the best at camp, I can say per Ted. Nobody else. You were there. You saw with your eyes. We saw what we saw. And at the end of the day, they can fight us. I'm not going to argue with you if you didn't see exactly what you saw. You're
Well,
going
because
off.
also it wasn't just us. It
It was
was just
everybody.
like you said, us and all these. It was rare that we were there with less than 4 or 5 creators, all helping each other, all comparing notes, all giving different opinions and challenging each other when need be. So, it's not like just one person who is very fallible in that type of
I agree.
situation.
I agree. I will say my only regret in this training camp was not lathering myself in as much sunscreen as you did, Ted, because I got sunburned. I mean, I got a golden tan. I was like, I came to work one day last week, and people were like, "Have you been in Hawaii?" Like one of my coworkers, she was like, "Where the hell have you been?" I was like, "Oh, training camp." She's like, "What are you doing out there?" I was like, "I'm cooking." Like I got golden tan, and my neck got so sunburned out there. It was hot.
That
So
stupid ugly hat came in really
yeah,
handy.
hat came in clutch for you, and I couldn't wear a hat because I had to go to work after. So I was like
Yeah,
basking out
yeah, you
there.
got to keep that killer dew going.
Yeah, it was bad, and then my neck got so sunburned. So next year I'm lathering up on the sunscreen.
Aloe vera is your friend.
Yeah, that's what I've been using. But yeah, I've never been really sunburned my whole life. Us brown folks, we feel like we don't need the sunscreen, but yeah, I need the sunscreen next year. It was bad.
When you go 8 days out of 12, I mean, it
It was
adds up.
It was
It adds
bad.
up.
I'm like super burnt on my neck. I had to put like aloe vera, but that's my only regret, Ted. Next
There
year,
you go.
lathering up just like Ted. This man had the sunscreen all over. I love it.
Pause.
Yeah. Pause. Oh man. All right, ladies and gentlemen, appreciate you guys for tuning in. Make sure you subscribe to Ted's channel. Hit that like button for me, and we'll be back. I'll probably be back on Instagram later. Let's be real with you. I love y'all. Have a good day. And if you guys see me through the season, say what's up. Take a pic. I always love when the people come up to us. So say what's up to us. And
thanks, Raj. And everybody on TED Talks Ball, get over to RSF 49ers. Like and subscribe there too. You probably already are, but just make sure you do it anyway. Thanks.
Go get my man Ted those 1,000 subs. We'll see you later.